Hey 4xe fans, still in the 2013 Honda Insight. Actually, this Insight belongs to my son. He's out of town for the summer marching drum corps, and I actually do have a rental from Jeep, but he's going to be back soon, so I got the rental. But I'm just driving the Insight just because it needs to be driven every once in a while because it's a hybrid, and you can't, you're not supposed to leave hybrids sitting very long. But let's talk about the battery degradation issue that I mentioned in one of my previous videos. Actually, it's probably the video right before this. Here's something that can happen in lithium-ion batteries is they can break down chemically. They can physically break down for a number of reasons, all of which I am not smart enough to really talk about in this video, but you can Google lithium-ion chemical breakdown, and there are all sorts of things that can happen in a lithium-ion battery to cause a chemical breakdown. And I have to say, my theory at this point, and I'm having this conversation with a few other people in the 4xe community, my personal theory right now is that what we are seeing in a lot of 21 model year batteries is a chemical breakdown, something that's just happening with time, not necessarily charge cycles or use. And the reason I say that is on the last video, you can go and read the comments, and if you're in the 4xe fans group on Facebook, you can read a lot of comments on a post that we have there where people are having the same experience with their 21 Wrangler 4xe's. They're having the same experience, and some of them have very little mileage, and some of them are around the 60,000 mark like mine. One person posted on a comment on the previous video that they have 11,000 miles on their 21 4xe. Now I have to ask, what in the world? How in the world do you work from home and never leave the house? That's just a low mileage vehicle, 11,000 miles. But at 11,000 miles, they've thrown a P0 BBD code, and they're having to take it to the dealership to get that remedied. So where does that lead us? We have to think about what that's going to result in down the road. If we're seeing a trend, and we are seeing an increasing trend, I'm amazed actually at the increase in the number of people that are saying they are seeing these issues in their Jeep. One thing that leads to is Jeep is now going to have a supply issue that they have to address in some way, shape, or form. They are going to have to be able to get batteries to dealerships to avoid having Jeeps sitting for weeks. If you have been a part of the 4xe community for a number of years, you might remember that early on, a lot of us were losing the electric coolant heater. And I was actually one of the first ones to have that. And, it took a little while just to get everybody on the same page as far as the dealership and the Jeep engineering people, until we got it escalated to engineering. It wasn't that the engineering people objected to that, it was getting that star case elevated to the point that it would go to Jeep engineering. The initial lower level people that we were talking with during that time, they were just like, well, it's operating the way it's supposed to. And it wasn't. So it took a little while to get that process remedied. And then getting the part was an issue. And if you aren't familiar with how supply chains work for automotive manufacturers, they have the supply chain dedicated to their assembly. And then there are parts that get designated for repair. And it doesn't seem like Jeep has a willingness to divert off of the parts that are dedicated to assembly to assist with the repair side, unfortunately. And you can understand why. They don't want to hold up the assembly line. But it does create an issue for an owner who's sitting and waiting on a part. And I think one thing that Jeep does not get high marks, for me anyway, one thing they don't get high marks on is service after the sale. Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, I think they all don't seem to understand that service is a part of the ownership process. At least they don't value it very highly, because having parts available for these vehicles, at least regionally, I can understand not stocking certain parts at every single dealership. I can totally get that. But at least having them distributed throughout the region in some way that part can be delivered to a dealership within a day or two to make the turnaround time on repair a lot faster. And that seems to be a little bit of an issue with Jeep, in that sometimes some of these parts that get in high demand on the 4xEs just aren't available quickly. And I think that's something Jeep really needs to address and really needs to look at and understand. You know, in my own personal experience, I have a company vehicle outside of my Jeep. My Jeep is no longer my daily driver, but there's a lot of people that depend on their Jeeps. I was reading one comment from a young person that they're a young single parent and they depend on their Jeep. That's their only vehicle that they have. I mean, we've got 4 vehicles in our family. My wife and I and our 2 sons, you know, we have 4 vehicles. So it's like we always have a vehicle around, but that's not the case for most people. And that's something Jeep needs to understand. One, loaners have been an issue for years. You know, if you try to get a loaner at a dealer, it's really hard to come by. And you have to get approval through Jeep's customer care side to get them to okay you renting a vehicle. And that should be an instant process. Like, once the vehicle is determined to be off the road, there needs to be a better process that a person can get right in another vehicle, even if that's a loaner for a day or two until they can get a rental or something. That's just something I feel Jeep is not doing well at. And parts availability is another. And that's the point of this video that I'm getting to. If we see an increased trend in battery failures and hybrid battery failures, Jeep really needs to work out ahead of that quickly and make sure that they are working on the supply chain side. I'm sure there are people at Jeep that track these trends, I would hope anyway, way more than we do in the 4xE community. And I would hope that our observation of what's going on is backed up by their data. And I hope that someone in Jeep is working out ahead to say, hey, we're going to need some of these. We're going to need some of these batteries, and we're going to need to stock them regionally, so we're not having to ship them and have it take a week to get from point A to point B. I mean, those of us on the eastern end of the United States were probably not too bad, because I think they're done somewhere around Detroit or something. But I shouldn't say Detroit. I don't know if it's in Detroit or somewhere in northern Ohio. I don't know where those are actually assembled, but those of us on this part of the country probably not too bad a shape. But those batteries are big and heavy, so they have to be, you know, handled properly. They can't just, you know, you can't throw it in an Amazon envelope and get it to a place the next day. They're one of those things that logistically is a difficult thing to ship. So I think it's something that Jeep would do well to look at ahead of time and help out the owners, you know, that are experiencing this issue. Don't make us go through this experience and then have to have that vehicle parked for weeks until the battery comes in. Right now, my estimated delivery date on the battery is August 6th. It's July 24th. So that thing's off the road until at least then. And, you know, unless something happens that ship date gets moved up, it's, you know, I'm without a Jeep until then. Now, like I said, in my case, it's not my daily driver. I'm not depending on it all the time, but I sure would like to have my Jeep back in the garage. So my hope is that somebody in Jeep is already leaning out ahead of this and going out ahead of us and stilling the waters before this issue becomes a big issue and we start seeing people all over the country with Jeeps sitting for weeks, like we did several years ago when there were so many issues that the Jeep dealerships were they weren't prepared to work on, they weren't prepared to fix. And you had stories, I mean, there were a lot of stories of Jeeps sitting in the shop for 30 days, 45 days. And that goes back to what I said earlier about that service component, that, you know, service is part of the ownership experience. And we, you know, as owners, I hope we can ask Jeep kindly to, you know, be transparent on this issue, go out ahead of us and lean into this so that we can get our vehicles fixed and back on the road in a timely manner. So that's my hope for Jeep anyway. So thanks for watching. I don't mean I'll be all doom and gloom, but I don't really have a Jeep to shoot videos with right now. So this is what it is. And I do like to keep this channel updated with the latest that's going on. Not trying to be negative or anything. I just like to be real on this channel. So thanks for watching. Take care.